Hi guys, this is the second video of advice to psychology students, and in this particular video I'm going to talk about more things relevant to when you're studying. They're just small tips, small pieces of advice that I tend to find I tell students that are studying psychology because they're asking me questions. So the first one is grit and bear statistics, because I remember that statistics was just the bane of my life at university. I couldn't stand statistics. I don't think anyone did. And we used to have that book on that computer program SPSS, or I think it was called SPSS. And yeah, so just grit and bear it, because you won't really have to do that kind of stuff after your degree. I mean, unless you go into research or do some kind of research project. But yes, just grit and bear it, get through it, and support each other, because it's a frustrating module. So the second one is when you're researching information, when you're writing essays, a good thing is obviously to use Google Scholar. That's just the best thing. There's another app called Mendeley, which has different articles and journals in it, which I found actually in my psychotherapy training. I didn't use that at university, so I don't know if it's relevant, but it's called Mendeley. I'll write that in the description below. You can use articles as well that you find online, and obviously books in the library, but obviously just make sure you reference them all properly. One thing that I would say is when you're looking online, try not to feel overwhelmed by the masses of information. And it's kind of like, I remember when you kind of click on one link and then you find another link that's related to that article, and it takes you to another article, which takes you to another article, which takes you to another article. It's kind of like YouTube videos. You just kind of click and click and click and you're kind of on a topic that's totally not relevant to your actual essay question. So try to just stay fixed on the area of your essay, and make sure that you don't get too misled and overwhelmed by all the massive information. What I would do when I was doing this was I would copy and paste links in a document to certain articles that were relevant to my essay question, and then later on I would go back and read them in more detail and then highlight the relevant information and just kind of summarise from the abstracts. And then if necessary I would, read the full article, which you can probably access on your university portal. So yes, don't get too overwhelmed. Copy and paste links to relevant articles and then go back to them at a later time and read in more detail. So you're kind of gathering all the information and narrowing it down. The third point is probably the most simple. Maybe people do this and I never did until I made my mistakes and realised that I should do this after I realised, but which is really just referencing as you go along. When you're writing an essay, it's easy just to kind of write and then think I'll do the referencing after, or the citations after. But I would say do your reference list as you go along, because if you don't do it as you go along, sometimes you'll forget where you found a journal, and if you don't have the link saved, then you won't be able to find it, and then you won't be able to use that as a reference, and sometimes it might be a really good point in there. And also the second reason why you should do it as you go along is just because it's so tedious to do at the end. It's so extremely tedious, and if you don't reference properly then you can lose marks. So do it as you go along. That is my most important point that I would say. It just saves so much time and headache. And also in referencing, when you are looking for the journals and articles online, what I used to do is copy and paste the top bit, which would give the author or the researcher's name, the date, the title, and where the journal's from. Copy and paste that onto another reference document that we can keep aside, and then you can reference it later, but at least you can save all that snapshot of information that's relevant for the referencing later, rather than having to go back to each journal afterwards and doing the same thing. So just do it as you go along. So the fourth tip that I would say is, when you're writing an essay, what I used to use is an upside down triangle, or the upside down triangle. So where if you see a triangle which is upside down, the point is at the bottom. And so what I would always do is write introduction at the top of that triangle, middle, and conclusion. And I just used to write my brief points about how I would write, how I would kind of form my essay. So the introduction being the broadest part of the triangle, there's a lot more information there. And then as the triangle goes down, you narrow down the information until you reach, your conclusion and your answer to the essay. My final point is, when you're in third year and you're having to pick a research dissertation topic, I would suggest going with a topic that has a very, very good supervisor. When I was at university, I think I wanted to do forensic psychology. That was one of my first choice. Of course, it was everyone's first choice because it's the most interesting area of psychology, but I didn't get that. I ended up getting neuropsychology, which was my last choice. However, I'm really glad I did, because my supervisor for neuropsychology was so supportive and so nice, and he gave me his time. And I kind of found and heard that people that were doing other topics didn't have as supportive supervisors, and they kind of got stuck. And so I was actually really grateful that I had a really supportive supervisor. So try not to fall into the trap of just picking a fancy topic, but actually find a really good supervisor, because actually they will be able to support you and guide you in the best way. And anyway, if you can pass your dissertation and pass your degree, that's the main thing really that you want. So those are all my points. I hope they help. Maybe some of these were kind of already known to you, but maybe it can help someone who may not have been aware of some of these things.